I've been listening to Bob Dylan for an astonishing 37 years. I was recommended Blood on the Tracks when I was around 14 years old by my English teacher, who also recommended at the same time Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. And I remember sitting in my bedroom and listening over and over and over again to Blood on the Tracks while reading Crime and Punishment. And it would not be too grand a statement to say that that moment is one of the defining parts of my life. And I can't listen to Blood on the Tracks without thinking about Raskolnikov, and I can't read Crime and Punishment without thinking about the sort of desolate characters in the songs of Blood on the Tracks. I'm not a Dylan obsessive, and I'm certainly not a Dylan expert. There are many of those, but I have been listening to him for a long time, and sometimes at great length and arguably at great depth. A couple of years ago, I listened to all the '60s records in one go. Well, obviously not concurrently, um, but uh, and I was just astonished by the intelligence in the lyrics, the ingenuity, the breadth of language, the range of sources and references. And then when I then started to listen to other singer songwriters, I just felt that I was listening to sort of frivolous lyrics that were just useful for the tune. No lyricist um, in the second half of the 20th century has worked their words to the same extent that Dylan has. Um, and even without the music on the page, if one is generous to the media to which the medium to which they've been written, they stand up as strong writing often. And um, the key thing is that he is extremely well read, which means that they are kind of compacted full of references from scripture, from French poetry, from medieval history, um, and they do it with a sort of both a effortlessness, a playfulness, and a a verbal intelligence, which is why it is absolutely correct and that he's won the Nobel. Um, I was ecstatic when I found out he'd won. I would have been very happy if Philip Roth been nominated and won. I think he was for a while the greatest living novelist. Um, but the joy I felt with Dylan winning, no, there is no writer today, bar maybe Marilyn Robinson, that would give me that joy. Um, but clearly, other people disagree. But from what I can determine, reading sort of around, reading kind of op-ed pieces from around the globe, is they're either the opposition camps are either people who are just so kind of dully conservative they basically want a orthodox novelist or poet to win. They're either probably a generation too young to have a sense of the work existing in time and being part of um, the world. So it feels slightly historical. Well, I mean, he's still present now, but there is an ebb and flow to Dylan's career, which I think is really important. And in a sense, if you kind of grew up with you know, Morrissey and, whatever. He feels probably old. And the other is simply people who feel that if you willfully sing like that and you willfully play the harmonica like that, you simply can't be any good, because there is an idiosyncratic and somewhat deliberately willful obscurity to some of the things that Dylan does. To understand Dylan requires going back to and listening to those 60s interviews where he has to shun any notion that he is the the defining voice of the 60s. And he does that for his own, mental health, because he was the defining voice of the 60s. And but to accept that upon oneself would be it would be a moment of kind of megalomania, which would automatically lead to insanity. And he doesn't do that. He plays. I mean, he just plays with his audience. But I mean, that's another thing. That's really all I've got to say. Is that he deserves it. It has made me incredibly happy, and I think it means that we are asked to revisit the lyric as an art form, and I can't wait for a new edition of the lyrics to come out because of this Nobel Prize, and to have them reframed for me by this prize. And I'm someone who believes in him and his work deeply. That's it.